So we've talked a bit about the severed belonging that comes when we get in limiting thoughts and waking up out of them, and exploring now the sense of kissing the ground, coming back to what we love. Oscar Wilde puts it this way, he says, be who you are. Everyone else is taken. So when we belong to ourselves in our life, we rediscover that sense of possibility and hope. Next one I want to discuss comes from the question of, but I don't know what I love. Sometimes when we're really depressed, we don't know what we love. We don't find joy in things. And so the next teaching on rediscovering belonging is the centerpiece of all Dharma, which is then belong to what's right here in this moment, including the misery and the pain and the sorrow and the sadness. Belong to this moment's experience. The benefit is if you start right where you are with this moment, it will become a portal to the presence that we long for. But we start by being with what is. Woman, last week again, I was out in the Bay Area and did a day-long on relationships, on loving relationships. And she was describing the series of the habits that led to failed relationships for her. And what happens is she anticipates that she's going to be rejected in some way, that there's going to be an unevenness, that she'll want it more and the partner won't. And then when she starts detecting a pulling away, she grasps on and feels possessive or jealous or whatever. And then things crash. The person pulls away even more. And then she gets depressed, kind of hopeless. It's not going to work. And then kind of stays in that for a while until something possible comes along, and then she replays the pattern. So this had been what had been going on for a long time. And then she started practicing with mindfulness and with compassion. And her practice became, as we described with William James, when she'd see the thoughts of this isn't going to work, I'm going to be rejected, she would put it like a picture frame around them and say, okay, these are the thoughts of my feelings of I'm going to fail, I'm going to be rejected. Then she'd come into her body, and underneath those thoughts were fear. And underneath that fear, there was a sense of shame, of I'm not wanted, I'm unlovable, and real loneliness. And her practice was just simply be with that with a really deep compassion. She just told herself, I'm here with you, dear. I'm here with you, dear. I'm not leaving. And when she'd leave and the thoughts again of, this is going to fail, I'm going to be rejected, she'd come back and feel the feelings again. I'm here with you, dear. I'm putting my hand on my heart because that's a way to reconnect and establish belonging. It was the thing her parents did not do when she was upset. They didn't know how to say, I'm here with you, dear. Okay, so she did it for herself. And she said there was a real wake up one day when she sensed that the one who was offering care was tremendously tender, tremendously present, tremendously kind. She goes, that's me. This is my capacity. This is my potential. And she started paying attention to that, bringing her attention to that. This is me, meaning this is my more evolved potential being. Well, this started shifting the pattern. And as she described it, that with the next relationship, she was able to hold it a little more lightly because she was trusting more this goodness. And she was able to be more open about her insecurity because she didn't have to cover it because it didn't seem so toxic. She started developing a relationship, and her way was, I'm with you, dear, staying right with what's here. And I can say, just to extend on this personally, that countless times every day, I'll feel the arising of anxiety, and it comes from a feeling of, an old pattern of a separate self that's got too much to do, that's going to fail in some way. And that'll come up, that's severed belonging, it's some version of it. And each time, fear becomes a portal to the fearless heart, if I can just simply recognize it and stay a little in my body with kindness. So this isn't like only a practice for major dramatic incidents. This is like a daily way we cultivate trust. We deepen that sense of belonging. By every time some expression of the separate self, the severed self comes up, the response is, oh, let's be right here. Be with it, kind. It becomes a portal, and we begin to sense the potential of who we are, this presence that is incredibly tender and awake. We begin to trust that. So this is the next way of belonging, is to come home to ourselves in the moment. And I want to bring up one more before we close, which is absolutely essential, which is to realize our belonging with each other. We cannot heal severed belonging unless we can begin to come out of our bubble, begin to let ourselves feel our vulnerability in the presence of another, and open to that other, and sense our love and our appreciation with that other. Otherwise, on some level, we're still going to be feeling ourselves as separate and operating out of that separateness. It's the reason that 12-step groups work. Why do they work? There's so much research now. We cannot change habits if we don't trust the potential to change. So in 12-step groups, others are around and they're beginning to change habits, and that inspires us. In 12-step groups, we begin to sense, oh, it's not like I'm a bad, addicted self. It's the addiction we all have, the tendency we all have. Less shame. Another story for you. One woman described how she's in recovery for cancer, and she's in a group of people, a group of women that are all in recovery in some way. And she says it's deeply honest. In other words, they name all the fears they have of dying, all the shame they have for the way they look and feel, the insecurity that others will turn them into the C word, the disease, all the pain about being helpless and needy. They very, very honest. So it's very freeing because it's not my shame, it's the shame. It's just this human experience. That helps to heal severed belonging. In addition, and this is what I wanted to share with you, this woman I was talking to described how one woman was feeling a huge amount of angst because of not being there for her children, that she was just feeling very self-absorbed, as she put it, although she was just working with what was there. But she felt this angst of letting down her family. And so they went around and they opened to the vulnerability she was experiencing. They also went around the circle, and each of them named what they saw in her, which was her humor and her deep caring and her capacity to have others, how much she helped others feel accepted and cared about. And she let it in some, and she really lit up. And then this became part of their regular ritual. That as part of healing severed belonging, they not only would share their vulnerability, but they would go around in the circle and at different times take turns, look at each other and share what they saw as the goodness, that light and beauty and heart that's shining through. Arne Garborg, Norwegian writer, says, "To love someone is to learn the song in their heart and sing it to them when they have forgotten." So this is the other pathway. It's relational belonging. And it's absolutely essential to mirror the light. For this group, one of the other, before we left the day along, this woman described how naturally some people relapsed. And for 1 week before her death, she said more than anything in facing her death that this group allowed her to trust the timeless light that lived through her, and it was what was allowing her to move towards her passing with a wide open heart, with a fearless heart. This is hope. Hope is not that we won't die. It's the hope that comes from trusting a timeless quality of love and presence that lives through us and shines through us, and that will carry us as a refuge through all the ups and downs. Tibetan teacher and writer Sogyal Rinpoche puts it this way. He says, if everything changes, then what is really true? Is there something behind the appearances, something boundless and infinitely spacious, in which the dance of change and impermanence takes place? Is there something, in fact, we can depend on that does survive what we call death? So when we have spiritual hope, it really brings alive that capacity to trust in what is timeless and open to our moment-to-moment experience with real sense of receptivity. So as we've explored, we cultivate it, we step out of the limiting beliefs, we kiss the ground, we do what we love. We reconnect by belonging to the immediate experience of the moment and discovering in a truly awake, intimate way our belonging with each other. And these are kind of the pathways that remind us of something that's timeless, that can really carry us. A closing story for you, and then we'll just take a few moments to sit quietly. I've always loved this. This is a story about Kafka when he was an older man. He spent a lot of time sitting in a park. And one day a little girl walked by him and she had tears running down her face. And he stopped her and said, "Tell me what's wrong." And she said, "Well, I'm missing my doll, my favorite doll." And he decided to help her look around. They looked around but couldn't find it. A few days later, girl returns and Kafka says, "There's no doll, but there's a note." And he reads it. What the note said was, "I've gone off to travel some around the world. Please don't worry about me. I'm fine." So the girl's somewhat relieved. She returns to the park every week or so, and each time she does, Kafka's there with a note from the doll. And the girl, it's just each time that he reads to the girl the note and tells of the doll's adventures traveling around the world. So Kafka gets sick and he goes to the park one last time. This time he's brought a doll and he hands it to the girl and says the travels had really changed her. Some years later, when the girl was a young woman, she finds and reads a note that's been rolled up and placed in the doll's hand. She discovers it. Here's what it says. "You will lose everyone you love, but the love will always return in new forms." When we open to change, we realize the changeless that shines through us all. And trusting that changeless love, that awareness, and living from it is really the source of spiritual hope. So let's just take a few moments together to sit quietly. And in the spirit of this evening's reflection, you might begin just take a moment to sense someone who you really love. And what brings up that sense of loving. Just the goodness that you sense in that person. Sensing the way that person looks at you when they're loving you, caring about you. Just feeling the sense of connection. You might even mentally whisper the person's name and say thank you. Just let the feeling of belonging, just energy that's connected and part of each other. Just open to that and let go of the idea of the person and just feel that warmth and aliveness of belonging. Let yourself belong to this moment, to what's actually you're experiencing right here in your heart, in your body, in your mind. And as you listen to the rain, you listen to the sound, sensing the awareness that's here, that tender, open space of awareness that's listening and feeling the moment. Sensing in the background that awake openness of awareness, that tenderness that's really home. Timeless, loving presence. Now this is from Rilke. Center of all centers, core of cores, almond self-enclosed and growing sweet. All this universe to the furthest stars, all beyond them is your flesh, your fruit. Now you feel how nothing clings to you. Your vast shell reaches into endless space, and there the rich, thick fluids rise and flow, illuminated in your infinite peace. A billion stars go spinning through the night, blazing high above your head. But in you is the presence that will be when all the stars are dead. Namaste and blessings.